We're now joined by Dr. Mxolisi Dlamuka, CEO of Amafa and Research Institute, and he joins us now via our video link. Dr. Mxolisi, thank you so much for your time, sir, this evening here on SABC News. I mean, 2 more sites here in the KZN province being declared as World Heritage Sites. Surely this is great news for the province.
Good evening to you and those who are watching from homes. Yes, indeed, for our province, it is great news. But also remember that these sites are called serial nominations. So Sibudhu Cave is part of what we called the emergence of human behavior, which is consisting of 3 sites that were inscribed. So 2 other sites are in the Western Cape province. So what it then means is that we're going to be able to share the slides of tourism and also contribute to new knowledge about the emergence of human behavior in South Africa. There's also the same scenario with Ohlange. It is also a serial nomination with 14 components, of which Ohlange Institute is the site that is in KZN.
And perhaps maybe let's talk about and give us the background and talk us through, these sites, focusing on Sibudhu Caves as well as, Ohlange. What is the background here and the significance when it comes to these 2 sites?
Okay, well, with regards to Sibudhu, it's a cave, it's an archaeological site. What we begin to see, it's a very interesting development around 138 years to 20,000 years ago, where our ancestors, which is the Homo sapiens, begin to think in a scientific manner. So they begin to think the manner that we are thinking today. They begin to use a stone for proto-technology. They begin to use bone tools. We begin to see evidence of body decoration. We begin to see, first evidence of engraved patterns and drawings. So it means now they start to draw shapes. They start to conceptualize the meanings of shape. And, we also begin to see, the evidence of the use of shellfish. And also we're now seeing that these people around this time, they begin to use bedding and medicinal plant. So, and especially the use of ash, umlota for medicinal purposes, and also other plants that are found in the region. So it then begins to tell us that, in fact, traditional medicine that we have today began around this time. And what makes this Sibudhu Cave different from Steekfontein Cave, for example, in Steekfontein, this is where humanity begins.
Yeah.
But then along these caves in the coast, is 6 of them. So in KwaZulu-Natal, we're focusing on Sibudhu. So we see a change of not only now, the evolution of human species, but we begin to see the development of behavior. So one would even go to an extent of seeing that we begin to see what would have been the pigment of culture that begins to develop around this time in these caves.
And sticking with the Sibudhu Caves, I know that I asked you about Ohlange, but maybe we can dissect that a bit more later on. How valuable is, the Sibudhu Caves when it comes to human evolution history? I know that you somehow tried to outline it a bit, but how valuable is it, for a human evolution history?
Yeah, what is happening is that we're seeing a continuation of evolution, because human species, as we are today, we ought to have started to think in a particular manner at a particular stage. And this is when we have evidence of the beginning of those thought processes. And this is when we begin now to see that humanity begins to think in a scientific manner. By drawing shapes, they were communicating certain messages. By using bone tools, by decorating their bodies using ochre. So it begins to tell us that these are the people who were contributing into the human evolution in a particular way. And in fact, this is the beginning of the behavior and culture that we have today. And most of, or some of the things that are happening between this era, 138 and 200,000 years, so some of the things that started there are still happening. So they are telling us that, in fact, from Steekfontein kind of evolution. So this is the beginning of the behavior when a particular behavior begins to emerge. If you go to a site also in KwaZulu-Natal, like Sibudhu Cave, which is also part of the serial nomination, we see evidence of a first burial that is taking place. So it means you then clearly see that there is a break in the pattern where there was no evidence of scientific thinking, but now it begins to show up that these people are beginning to change. And then the question that preoccupies archaeologists and scientists is why. So some archaeologists are beginning to look at the relationship between the seafood that they were eating and the environment that was changing over many years. So for example, by having access to seafood, then their brain capacity grew. They had more access to omega-3, which they didn't have when in England. So there is a variety of issues, and a team of archaeologists is still trying to establish really what could have attributed to these changes.
All right, very interesting there when it comes to the Sibudhu caves. Let's also maybe perhaps dissect the issue around Ohlange and, the importance it has in our history. And that's, the area where former President Nelson Mandela cast his first ballot in the 1994 elections.
Yeah, Ohlange is a very interesting and historical site. John Langalibalele Mafuzela Dube has this dream of building an industrial school for Africans. So what he then does after he has observed this in the US, he builds Ohlange from scratch. From the money that he collected together with his wife at the time, Nogutela Dube. And then linked to that also, they built the press facility, Ilanga, Natal, the same Ilanga that is still circulating today. So then when, of course, the history of Dube being elected to be the first President General of the African National Congress in 1912 when it was established, and Dube continues to be part of the deputation to US and to UK, and he uses Ilanga as an instrument of communicating with the African community in the then Natalian KwaZulu.
All right.
So what then is that when President Nelson Mandela had this right to vote in 1994, he chooses to vote at Ohlange, where Dube started this movement, and Dube is also buried there. So he was then communicating a message to say, President, I have delivered what you started. So in this site, it is part of what is called Inanda Heritage Route, which consists of, when you start the route, you start with the Mahatma Gandhi Finance Settlement, and then the next site next to it is the Shembe, Ekpagameni, and then it is
All
Ohlange.
right.
Then there is the house where Dube family lived, as well as the cemetery where John Dube is buried, together with the Dube family.
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We would have loved to chat to you a bit more longer. That is Dr. Mxolisi Dlamuka, CEO of AMAFA Research Institute, just giving us a bit of more insight when it comes to those two World Heritage sites, of course, being the Sibudhu Cave in KwaZulu-Natal, as well as Ohlange.